Hello, mến chào tất cả quý vị anh chị em. Hôm nay là cái poll mới ngày hôm nay giữa ông Trump và bà Kamala Harris. Nói bằng tiếng Anh nhưng mà có phụ đề Việt ngữ. Xin mời quý anh chị xem.
It was Kamala Harris, who's been running behind this entire time, that needed to make a mark. She didn't do that, and today we'll be taking a look at the updated 2024 electoral map after the first and possibly only debate between the two major party candidates. We'll start off by filling in the solid states for both candidates. These are states that either Harris or Trump are going to win by 15 percentage points or more. I'm going to start off with the state Republican states. Trump is easily going to win in Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, South Carolina, Alaska, and the 2nd District of Maine. This gives him 126 electoral votes. While for Kamala Harris, she's going to win in Washington, California, Hawaii, as well as Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. She trails with just 109 electoral votes. Moving on now to the likely states, these are going to be noticeably more competitive, although one candidate will still maintain a strong advantage. So we're going to begin with the states that Trump is going to win by 7 to 15 points, beginning in the Midwest with Iowa and Ohio.
Hey,
Ohio, two states that Trump has completely transformed since he first entered politics 9 years ago. In 2012, Iowa and Ohio were still very competitive. They voted for Obama. 8 years before, in 2004, they both went to George W. Bush. But in 2016, Trump shifted Iowa 15 points to the right and Ohio at nearly 12, and he won both of these states by likely margins. In 2020, when people said Joe Biden could win Iowa or Ohio or at least make it more competitive, Trump won these states again by virtually the same margin. In 2022, the Republican governors of both Iowa and Ohio won their re-elections by solid 20-point margins. On the presidential level, these two states are going to be more competitive, but there's no doubt they will go in favor of the former president for a third time in a row. Moving down south to Texas, we have another state that Democrats thought they could win 4 years ago. Joe Biden, in the end, didn't really come close. The polling said Trump was only going to carry the Lone Star State by 1%. He ended up winning by 6 times that margin, and today he's on track to winning it by at least double digits. He might even win it by over 15, but for right now, we will place Texas in the likely red column, as no Republican has been able to cross that 15-point threshold since Mitt Romney in 2012. We have another huge prize for the former president, and that comes in the form of Florida, another 30 electoral votes. This is a huge gain for Republicans now that Florida is no longer competitive. For 3 decades, this was the ultimate battleground state. Whoever won Florida almost always ended up winning the election. That didn't happen in 2020, though, when Donald Trump won Florida by a larger margin than he did in 2016. In fact, this was the best performance for any candidate of any party in the Sunshine State in 16 years. And in this election, Trump is probably going to win Florida by more than 7 points. It's going to be the best performance for a major party nominee in a presidential election since 1988. The Sunshine State is going to be the final likely red state on our map. And so with just these states that Trump is going to win by 7 points or more, he is already 51 electoral votes away from securing a second term. Before we continue, only 16% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below. Moving on now to the likely blue states. Many of these are just going to be states that Joe Biden won by solid margins in 2020, but that Kamala Harris is going to underperform in. First off, we have the state of Oregon. Fundamentally, this state just isn't as liberal as its two neighbors. We also have the Empire State of New York. Kamala Harris is on track to becoming the first Democrat to not win the state by a solid margin since Michael Dukakis in 1988. We also have a competitive race in New Jersey with the scandals that Senator Bob Menendez has been embroiled in over the past 6 months. Delaware, without Joe Biden on the ballot, is also going to be noticeably more competitive. And finally, we have the state of Illinois. This will put Harris at 181 electoral votes. And so now we're left with the most competitive states in the country with a total of 138 electoral votes. All of these remaining states will be decided by margins of 7 points or less. And if you compare this map to what we saw in 2020, you would see a significant change from where we were before to where we are now. 4 years ago, states like Minnesota, Colorado, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine all would have gone blue already at this point. They all voted for Joe Biden by more than 7 points. But Kamala Harris is not going to perform nearly as well as the incumbent president did in 2020. And so we're now going to fill in the lean states for both candidates. These states will be decided by margins of 2 to 7 points. This is where you can really get these upsets. These states genuinely could go either way, but there is still one candidate that is favored. Beginning with the lean Harris states, we're going to start in Colorado. I have her winning by just under 7 points. I don't really see a pathway to victory for Trump in Colorado, but it is important to note that Joe Biden carried this state by 14 points in the last election. It was so close to being solid blue, but just 4 years prior, Hillary Clinton only won the state by 4.9%. Over in Nevada, this is another state where Democrats should be ahead. They haven't lost this state since 2004. That was coincidentally the last time that Republicans won Virginia too. But Donald Trump is now the favorite in the Silver State, a state he has never won before. He lost it by 2.4% to both Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden in the last 2 elections, but today he leads in the polling average. He's been ahead throughout the entire year. I have winning by just over 1%. Donald Trump is the slight favorite in Nevada. And finally, Wisconsin and Michigan. Generally, Michigan votes to the left of both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, while Wisconsin is the most conservative out of the 3. But since Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz to be her running mate for Wisconsin, which neighbors Minnesota, it's probably going to vote to the left of Pennsylvania. However, that's probably not going to be enough for her. I do have Donald Trump winning both of these close states, just like he did in 2016. The Rust Belt tends to vote together, like he saw in 2020 when Joe Biden narrowly flipped these states back. But against Kamala Harris, I do see Trump performing even better than he did against Hillary Clinton 8 years ago. And so after the first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Kamala Harris did not do what she needed to get done. Donald Trump is still the overwhelming favorite in the 2024 election. He's on.
Thì cái poll ngày hôm nay ra là ông Trump được 312 cử tri đoàn, cũng như là bà Kamala Harris là 226. Chỉ còn 270